Hey folks, this is Tony and welcome to Game Dev Stream 2 today. This morning we started off by getting the slime enemy into the game, as well as fixing the issue with the HP reaching 0 causing the game to kind of just break. Still not super happy with the fix we did for that, but at least it's functional and we can play the game without it kind of needing a full restart, which is good. And then we started working on the UI hiding tutorial stuff this morning as well. That's going okay. We're kind of just in the thick of it right now. We had just finished setting up these kind of like parent objects that require this new component we just made called required flag component, which is doing a little bit of logic to essentially check to see whether or not that flag is completed. And if it's not completed, it's going to turn off that game object. So the UI will be hidden unless a specific flag is on. The next thing we were going to look at doing, I think, was, well, we should have this stuff. Well, I think actually the next thing is we need to set up these flags, because these flags don't exist yet. So we're going to need to make them, and we're going to need to toggle them as part of the tutorial. Yeah, so I guess that's next. Let's see, I guess... We're going to need to set up these flags, which means we're going to need to open up a tab on the game dev spreadsheet, which should be this one over here, just getting it off screen. And then we have a series of different flags, which is these ones. Okay. So we have this system of flags, and we can create a new one called set, and we can give it, we don't need to give it an initial state because it'll be fine. And then we just need to add all of these flags to this list. So we're going to have the the clock tutorial flag. We're going to have the ability tutorial flag. That'll be of type set as well. And then I think we have two more that we need. We need a flag for the player status to be visible. And we need one for the room information. And I think that is all the flags we will need. Okay, let's get that downloaded. So we're going to download that. Just finding the right folder. Design data. TSVs. So in here, we're going to save over the existing flag folder. We're going to replace that, and then we're going to parse that into a JSON file for us. And then those should get initialized on start. I'm going to just go double check the JSON to make sure they're there correctly. Yes, so we now have a couple of different flags for this. I guess we didn't add the word flag to these, which probably would be more clear. I guess we don't do that anywhere else. Maybe this one is unnecessary then. We'll make that change, and I'll just directly modify the JSON file, and I will modify and re-download it as well from the TSV. Replace. Okay. And then from there, I just want to fix this one as well. Cool. So we have the flags set up. We have them in the data. So I think each of these tutorial components should also have a auto deactivate. So when we start the game, they should be turned off until something turns them on. Namely, that flag has been set to true. Let's drag this back up into here. Get that out of the way. Right, we're still on the front end screen, so we need to go back to, let's go to boot. So scenes, infinite retries, core, boot. And so at this point, we should see none of the UI and none of it should be turning on if we've set this up correctly. So we go new game. And we had no UI here, no UI here, and no UI here. Perfect. But the thing will be after we skip through the tutorial and we start a run, we will also have none of the UI here. Oh, interesting. Oh, we failed to find the flag. Is that something we saw at the beginning too? Oh, interesting. Couple of weird errors. Ah, two keys with the same entry. So that would probably be the first error that caused most of the problems. So something about our flag design data is wrong because we have two things with the same entry ID. Well, I guess we'll have to debug because I can't see anything wrong with it off the bat there. So if we come back over here, double click, inside of the checkpoint flag design data, we're trying to create two with the same ID. Attach the debugger. Enable for this session, and let's try that again and see what's going wrong with our data entry. So at this point, we should have, there's a checkpoint 1, checkpoint A, checkpoint 3, so there's no problem there. Ah, no, this is an issue. Okay, I see. We at some point had edited files directly, which was a bad idea, and we had broken, I think, these two out into their own folder or their own TSV. And so they shouldn't be there in this one anymore. And by downloading the true version, and then replacing the incorrectly edited one, we brought back that bug, or set the data up in a way that was incorrect. Okay, that is fine. I think we just need to reparse the flags now. That should be better. I think the checkpoints should be like its own spreadsheet entirely, that we just track all of that. And in fact, I think a lot of the flags might benefit from just being separated out from each other, just because we're going to have so many. I still kind of feel like in general there should be a better system to handle them. Okay, let's see if we get any other errors. Okay, skipping through. That's a weird bug I will need to look at in a bit. Okay. Not seeing any errors. Yep, 0 errors. So yeah, it was all related to the design data being input incorrectly. And we have no UI here, which is what we were expecting. So now we want to turn that UI on by essentially activating specific flags. Let's see if we can do that just with the intro sequence. And while we're here, let's also see if we can figure out what's going on with that block that's not flying off. This is a backup. This is the true version. 11-8, 11-8, and 11-8. I think I may have gotten the wrong number here. I think is what's going on there. No, that doesn't make sense. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why we're seeing an additional tile floating in space. I want to see which one that is. So when we go into the new game, we see everything slide up like this. Ah, and then this tile over here showed up. Oh, you know what that is? That is the reveal logic, I think. So when the character spawns in, we spawn in and do a kind of reveal around us. And for this intro, which is this transition, how do we actually spawn the character? That's going to be in our prefabs? No. It's going to be in our abilities. Goddess boot intro. This is doing some in front of us checks. I think one of these is just revealing too far to the left. And in fact, for our purposes, I don't think we actually need any of these. We just turn off this whole branch. Because all of this should be revealed as part of our normal flow, or the intro. So I think we can just turn off all the reveal stuff, the site stuff for the goddess. We can also probably turn off this delay. Maybe not. We'll leave that there. Okay. Now. In here. That's fine. We want to, in here, try turning on some of the UI. So let's do a base. Is it not base? Where do we set a flag? Flag wait sequence step, which will wait for a specific flag to be active. That's UI related. We are looking for a set flag, which I know I have because I see it right above. Ah, it's a backend related. I guess that's a fair naming. So we're going to set complete, and we're going to set complete on the couple of flags that we have. I'm going to just drag those off screen so I can grab them easily. So we're going to set clock tutorial to complete to start with. And maybe we do that. Let's say just during some of the dialogue. I'm not sure when that'll be, but I guess we could open these up. Where am I? Sorry, I don't have time. Let's modify it here. And now after we have the dialogue from the goddess, the clock tutorial should appear. Where am I? Sorry, I don't have time. And after I click here, we should see the UI appear. We do not. So this is setting it to complete. Oh, are we in the cutscene? I think we are in the cutscene. Ah. That's a problem. So we set all of this logic up to happen inside of the base combat screen, but for this we're entering into the cutscene screen, which is not registering the same components. Okay, so this is troublesome. I don't want to rework things too much, but probably the easiest thing would be to have it so that we enter into combat base first. So if we go look at boot screen, transition to dungeon, I think we might want to just go to the combat base screen here instead. And in fact, I think we do that in pretty much every other situation. We enter into combat base instead of cutscene. No, these ones are also sending us to cutscene. Interesting. I don't really want to have references to these components that require the flag required components that are inside of the combat screens. I don't really want it to be referenced via cutscenes. Which makes me wonder if the initialization stuff we're doing here is maybe not the best. Okay, so we should be in the combat base now. Where's the search bar? Thank you. Combat base screen. Yeah, we are. So we should have initialized components correctly. And then the clock appears. Okay. Yeah, so now it works correctly. Okay. It feels a bit awkward, but I think that is what we're looking for. I'm going to try a couple of things. We're going to try, what about if when we go into the intro, in here, if we do a UI, trying to see if we can find a way to go to the cutscene as part of this sequence. Yeah, because I think that's how we originally designed things. But I fear that on terminate we may unregister the components again. So even if we do this, I don't think it's going to work the way I want it to, but I'm going to try. This is not indented, so that is not blocking, so we probably do need to add a do we not need to add a wait here? I thought we would need to add a wait for cutscene screen. Can we find another sequence? See if we can find one called cutscene. From Era of Embers stuff. This is for the dialogue assets. This is disabling player control. Yeah, none of these are opening the UI. Okay, there's a couple of different sequences here. Bridge crossing. But none of these are the ones I'm looking for. I would think... Is it jailbreak? Jailbreak is the one I'm looking for. I would have thought this would have had a open the cutscene sequence step in here, but I'm not seeing it. Okay. I'll see what happens. So we are in the cutscene screen now. And if I click past this, yeah, because we've opened the new screen, we're not going to be in the right state for the clock to appear. Yeah, this seems not great. So we can't do this. Just feels awkward that, like, in order for us to turn the UI on, we need to be in a specific screen. But it kind of makes some sense too, because that UI is related to that screen that we would need to be in. It almost feels like the HUD shouldn't operate the same way in some regards, though. Like, the HUD should just always be on. And when we do a screen transition, this is not doing a... Is this doing an open or is it doing a swap? This is doing an open. So the HUD will be open in behind, but because we're closing it... Yeah. A lot of half thoughts. Sorry, chat. I'm not fully explaining myself, but also I'm moving through stuff. Mentally. I think we're fine to not worry about having the cutscene. The main thing that's nice about being in the cutscene screen is if it's set up correctly, it adds like these kind of like movie bars, like black bars on the top and bottom of the screen, which makes it feel a little bit more cinematic to me, and I like that. But for the time being, I'm going to leave this in the combat base when we're in that opening boot intro, just so that we can move forward with the rest of the tutorial, and we'll figure out a way to better handle this stuff in the future. Okay, so let's go modify the dialogue asset. When we talk to the goddess, this is the sequence stuff. We need to take a look at the dialogue assets. What is... This is not it. That is not it either. What asset are we using? Which asset are we using? Oh, I embedded it in the same area this time. Okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. So we have the intro, and then we have the dialogue related to the intro. Where am I? Okay, let's expand this window. I'm sorry I don't have time to fully explain. Not this time, at least. I must send you down to my world before I am too weak. I think I would like to add... Maybe I can just add it to the end here. Take this. And then it feels like it's out of the flow. So I like this idea that like the goddess is handing you this stopwatch, which is this magical thing that shows how much how much time you have until you run out. And your run ends? Okay. Take this. Fix some of the capitalization here. There was another typo, didn't I have, where it should be 2? I will explain when you return. For now, just keep going. Journey begin. Your world. Are you... Okay, yeah. I like the franticness of the way this is feeling. I think the take this is fine, and we won't acknowledge it until we get to the ground. Which maybe that works out okay, actually. Maybe we shouldn't be showing the clock UI until after we teleport into the forest. And we can have heroes speak aloud and just be like, hey, this is... What was that? Oh, I got something, or something along those lines. Yeah, okay. Okay, so then the next thing is, I think the goddess is not actually a real character or an NPC. If we go to core goddess realm and we look, I think the goddess is a billboard. Yeah, there's a to-do here. Basically, the goddess is just a tree. We need to make it so that this loads not a billboard prop, but like an NPC of a character. Which I don't have a system for yet. So I think the goddess needs to be a unit, because it's going to need all of the same logic of movement and animations. So I think we want to load a unit on that tile, similar to how we might spawn an enemy. So how do we do that? Okay, this might be more of a rabbit hole. I really just want to have the goddess appear, be idling, and then just have like an interact animation that like hands hero something when she says take this. But if I want to do that, I'm going to have to write a whole bunch of systems right now, and I think that's fine. I think that's fine. So let's go in here. We have this enemy spawn behavior. Oh, interesting. This is happening on awake. I thought I was building this into the tiles, but we do not. Okay. So this is an enemy spawner. So I guess we need something similar for NPCs. All right. So let's start building that folder structure. So we're going to need a new folder for NPCs. We will have a new script. In fact, is it all of these? It's probably all of these. And this is going to become NPC state, which I don't know if we really need to be saving and loading information on them. Unity has taken its time. Let's see if we can rename things faster in here. Dungeon NPC spawner. Nope. Dungeon NPC manager. Okay. Rename this. We'll do it manually. Hydrate Redemption. Complete. That's good. Honestly, my throat's starting to die a little bit today. I don't know why. And then Dungeon State Manager. This is NPC Manager. Is this thing even used anymore? This handles like spawning, which has 0 references. Does this get... It does get used. It is referenced by the... Ah, interesting. Okay, so yeah, we do need this. Let's do a find replace in file. Not entire solution, current document. Let's do enemy with the word NPC and see where that takes us. Okay. Now this has to do with something to do with the AI state components. Interesting. Hello, Amorphous, in the Twitch chat. The smart stuff is going, although not feeling so smart today. I definitely feel like we're struggling a little bit mentally. Just running into a lot of architectural problems that I just can't figure out on stream. It's funny, I feel like it's not a big deal though. It's the same thing as if I was doing it off stream. It's just a little more self-conscious about the fact that it's like, I can't solve this right now. And I just need to get better about realizing, hey, I'm gonna just move on and try and think about this off camera. But for right now anyways, we're in a good flow. Overall, heading in a good direction. Trying to get a tutorial kind of system set up where we show certain bits of the UI slowly. And in order to do that, I'm trying to figure out how to make the goddess an actual NPC. Because right now the goddess in the goddess realm is essentially just a billboard, like tree, essentially. It's just an image of the goddess. But I would like to make it so the goddess is actually like a character. But I'm realizing we have this AI state system for our enemies. We might want something similar but different for NPCs. Or maybe an NPC will just be an AI. It's the same thing, it just might have different behaviors than something in it that is aggressive. The goddess is a lie, but we're gonna fix that. We're gonna fix it. Mostly because I just want to have her do an interact animation midway through the intro stuff. Alright, so I think this is fine. We can keep the NPC state system, and we can keep the NPC spawner. The main difference here is that this dungeon state manager, which handles adding the enemy spawners to the list, so that enemy spawner, when we call spawn, will work correctly. Yeah, okay, I'm starting to see it. It's been a while since I wrote this code. So what we want to do then is we want to go into the dungeon state manager, And we're going to add a reference to our new dungeon NPC manager. And this is going to do a similar bunch of stuff that the enemy one was. So wherever the enemy was being set up, we're going to do the same thing here. So load dungeon state. We're going to give it a reference to the save data. And then save data does not exist currently because I spelled it wrong. Okay, next section. We're going to do the exact same logic here, and we're going to load the NPCs, and we're going to change this log here so that we can track that well. Get rid of some extra white space we don't need. What else? Handle player and enemies. I'm sorry, not handle. Hand player and enemies to the combat state manager to handle turn order. I don't think the NPCs are going to have turn order, so that's fine. We'll leave that out. We will still snapshot the data just in case there's stuff that we want to save about their current positions or anything. And we are also going to reset their spawns. And then lastly, we will need an accessor function the same way here, where we will add NPC spawns. Okay. So we're doing all the exact same logic that we do for an enemy, with the main difference that we're not adding it to the state manager to be run on. So here we're doing that. That seems fine. And then when we spawn an NPC, I don't think we need to actually set up all of the AI state beta stuff right now. We may eventually want that, but for the time being, let's just remove it all and see what the class looks like when we're done. Out of curiosity, where do we ever call get units? Just as part of setting up the combat state machine and the target manager. Okay, so if that's the case, I don't think we need that for the NPC because we're not going to be handing these off. So we'll just comment all this out as well. When we spawn it, we're mostly going to be just creating it. Let's assume all of this is fine. We're going to, whatever addressable, we're going to spawn it, but we're not going to worry about setting up the state machine for it because it shouldn't really take actions. We just really need it to exist. So I don't think we need to do any of this. We don't need that. And then combat snapshot shouldn't need to do anything at this time. Again, this all might get filled in if we ever do like AI patrols or something, and like keeping track of where like maybe the NPCs might die as part of like a cutscene or something. We might want to track that information. But as it stands right now, I just need the scene to load that NPC. This looks unnecessary. We can comment that out for the time being. Just simplify as much as possible. And honestly, handle battle results is more of a thing for Heir of Embers. It should be removed from the enemy one as well. Okay, so this is really simplified. It's really going to just have a ability to set that NPC to spawn on this map, the ability to clear that. It will save out essentially nothing because it will never be snapshotting anything, but it will have the functions and we'll try and do some empty state saving. And then when it loads, it's just going to make sure it's not defeated, which again should never be able to be set. And we're just instantiating the prefab that we're given. So really it's a lot of work just to spawn a prefab. Now, where does that actually exist in here? Is there actually like an enemy tracker? Is that what has it? No. Oh wait, is this a find? Oh, it's not a singleton at all, right? It's constructed and initialized via the dungeon state manager. Okay, so yeah. So we just need to have... So if we copy this thing, go back to the goddess realm, and inside of here... I don't think it actually matters where we put it. We just need to put one of these and call this goddess spawn. And we just need to create a prefab. Just. There's a lot of justs here, but it's not that complicated. It's really... mostly a lot of copy and pasting. So this is the old version. Let's call this one billboard. Name this one goddess. Open this one up. Inside of the sprites, we will change the sprite renderer's controller to point to the goddess. And then we will give the sprite a default one here. If we look at that in the scene, that should be the goddess. And the goddess will have all the other state stuff, but we just won't initialize any of it, and hopefully that's okay. I'm not entirely sure. And we can get rid of this to-do one. This can get deactivated now. So if we run this, ideally... Oh, actually, would help if we actually set up the prefab to load here. And then if we give this value here, it should load that prefab with an initial facing of south should be correct. Oh, and position it in the right spot. Why does this have an entity of spawn? Say NPC spawn? What is it doing with this entity? Oh, it needs to be also changed. Oh, interesting. It uses the entity ID as part of the state machine system. And what does the state machine do with these values? Nothing? Oh, and it uses it to store it in the save data to keep track of which one it is. Interesting. So these should be different because this is what we saved the data to. Okay. Oh no, it uses the sibling index. So this entity system, if I tick that sibling index, will add the index of the transform to the ID. Okay, so yeah, it's just NPC spawn for this map. Let's go back. I want to take a look at where this was positioned. Oh yeah, it's just floating in here. Okay, that's fine. A little weird with the sibling index thing because it's going to be a really large or weird number, but I think what I will do here, just for sanity, is we'll just make this like a like a child of an empty game object just called NPCs for sorting. And then that's south, that seems fine. Oh, right, this needs to be swapped to an NPC spawner. South. This goes here, and then we remove this. Okay, when I run this, we should see the goddess spawn in facing south. Oh. No, we won't, because we're not setting up any of the state machine stuff. Wait, why would you spawn... That also makes sense. Okay, so if we don't use any of this logic, we're not going to actually set the spawn point. Interesting. Let's go back and reference the enemy one. Oh, we weren't doing any of this stuff, right? So it just initializes the AI state machine with the spawner, gets the initial position and the XY to place it. Well then, what if we just set it up with an AI state machine, initialize it, but don't add it to the list? That won't work because it needs specifically an enemy spawner. We also don't want to spawn the goddess as an actual enemy, because then you'll be able to fight. This is tricky. Maybe not tricky, just it's requiring more systems than I would have hoped. Because I really just want to spawn the NPC character with all of its animation tree and logic set up so that I can manage it via a cutscene. But we need some sort of initial state management here. So I think the natural progression here is that, again, we need a similar system as the AI state beta, but for NPC. So in Dungeon, we will make a new folder, add folder, NPC, and we will make a state machine folder, and we will copy AI state machine, and we will make a NPC state machine, because we need some logic here to at least place its position and its facing. We don't care about setting up any of its stats, at least for the time being. We don't care about its alliances. We do care about setting up its animations, potentially. Don't care about setting up its abilities. We do need to do this because we want to set its initial facing. And obviously want to place it. This requires it be a unit. I guess I do need to set up its alliance. And I need to set up its alliance as a hero instead of as an enemy. Maybe there's room here for a... Oh, weird. There's room for like another alliance of like neutral. So as long as my combat stuff is set up to only target enemies, I think this will be okay. Oh, I have a search on. And then this needs to be an NPC state. Renaming everything. That all seems okay. Now what? Oh, just didn't save. Okay. Change up the music again. Let's do... Haven't heard Forest of Fairies in a while. Okay. Runtime errors. Did not find the entity reference. Oh, that makes sense. We need to actually modify the prefab now. So inside of here, this needs to not use the AI state machine, but it needs to use the NPC state machine. And this will go here, and the animator will be the sprite renderer. And then we can remove this piece. She's in the right spot. Not seeing any errors. Okay. Oh, right. She doesn't have an idle animation, I don't think. No, we did not get an idle animation for her. But she does have an interact. Okay. And a walk. So let's validate that that's working. Let's come into here, go to the animator. Let's drag this down to this lower level. And if we click walk, she does walk. Okay. We do want to fix the looping issue we were seeing a couple streams ago, where we realized that we needed to be adding loop to the end of these. Okay. Export. And to the goddess folder, we will export the JSON file and just the JSON file because the sprites haven't changed. And then if we re-import the animations, walk is now a bool instead of a little circle, it's a square, which means we should be able to see that loop forever. Okay. and move forward a bit, and then interact. Okay, I think that'll work. I think that'll read okay. Now, oh, last thing we should check. Does the goddess have an entity on the prefab so that we can find that character? Ideally at this level. No. No entity ID. So how do we track down the goddess from a cutscene? The NPC spawner will have the entity ID of the original one. So something we can do here is we can just pass that information along. Because we don't want to necessarily hard code the information onto this prefab. Well, no, this is better. We could. I think we could totally hard code the information, but we're just going to do an initialization with whatever the ID was of the spawner. Cool. And this will give us a reference basically to be able to find the goddess, to be able to tell the goddess to move forward or to do the interact animation, etc., etc. So in here we will make this something more reasonable. So we will say goddess entity. Maybe. Sure. Entity's a bit redundant. NPC. That makes more sense to me. Goddess NPC. And now, if we hit... No, one more thing. We have to come into here and actually create an entity down here. Do we? I guess if we assume that we want to... If we assume we want to initialize it ourselves anyways, I suppose we could just do this. And if that's the case, we don't need a reference up here. Yeah. Great. So now the prefabs will auto-generate an entity component, which is how we reference things from cutscenes, and it will get whatever the spawn information was. So we should see that this prefab, specifically the container part, should have an entity called Goddess NPC. Awesome. Next step is let's see if we can change her animations. So if we're in here as part of... Actually, you know what? I want to add a new inspector because for modifying this, it'll be easier in this large view. Let's add a new step to the sequence, and we will make it an animation parameter sequence step. And we will modify it for Goddess NPC. We will be modifying a trigger and it will be interact for the parameter name, setting it to true. Duration won't matter. And I don't think we want this to be blocking. Well, maybe actually. Let's see. So let's add a blocking here. The goddess won't be standing close enough. I would like to move the goddess at some point forward. Morphus in Twitch chat. Morphus in Twitch chat. Wow, my pronunciation is off today. Amorphous in Twitch chat says, you know, I was going to say the goddess is real now, but I think she might just be a more elaborate lie. I mean, isn't the whole game just an elaborate lie? Why are we not getting the cutscene here? When loading in, we should still get the cutscene. Ah, okay. That's also an important note. The goddess billboard probably has an entity originally. NPC goddess. Okay. So we want to keep that same naming convention so that the dialogue is anchored to the right spot. Also, when loading from boot, we 100% had the cutscene play, so I don't remember writing any special code to disable the cutscene when loading it directly. Why does the boot cutscene not play here? Yeah, we're just free to move around. Odd. I don't remember making a change to that. Okay, we'll go from boot though. New game. Good. Oh, we are getting a bunch of errors. No sprite render attached. Ah, okay. That's fair. So it needs to be an entity here with that ID. But in order to set parameters, we will need to have an entity up here as well. Unfortunate. Does this have a reference to the sprite renderer? It does. New plan. Grab the entity's game object. We're going to need to make two entities here. We're going to make one entity on this object, which will be the ID plus underscore I don't know what this one is. I guess this is the container. Because it's the root one. Okay. And then I think for the actual cutscene, when we try and edit here, the parameter, this becomes NPC container is what we're trying to modify. Because this will have the animation component on it. And the animation component is what the sequence is looking for. Okay. Slightly confusing, but I think it's fine. So we have this one here, which will be the actual sprite renderer where we need to anchor the dialogue to. And then we also have the container, which is where we'll be referencing the animation stuff. Okay. See if that works. Morphus in Twitch chat says, are you saying you lie for a living? I make entertaining lies for a living. Video games are a series of illusions. It's all magic. All right, so we have dialogue appearing in the right spot again. And that broke. So the parameter system didn't work because it couldn't find the animation on an entity with that. Well, it couldn't find the entity is what most likely what the problem was. So let's validate the naming. So if we click on the goddess, this should have an entity object called NPC goddess container. Oh, did I get that wrong? I think I got that wrong. And just to be clear, down here, this is NPC goddess. Okay. If we look around for a bit here, where do we find the cutscene we are editing again? Here. In fact, one thing that's nice to do sometimes when making these edits is just locking this one here so that we don't have to keep finding the file. Yeah, and the naming was just off. Have a good day, Amorphous. Thanks for stopping by and saying hello. Work, please. That's good. Zoom in again. Yes, perfect. That's what I wanted. I'd like it if the goddess stepped forward. We can see if we can figure out how to make that happen. The question is, which sequence step would that be? I feel like I never completed that task. We can offset an entity, I think. Move tiles, reveal the board, reveal specific tiles. We can move to a specific position or a local position. But I don't think we ever really built a move to tile to make a unit move forward to a new location. For the sake of this cutscene, I don't think we need anything more. Than simply a translation forward. Move to position, move to local position. Did we ever make a move to tile sequence step? We did. How far did we get with that? Oh, it's not set up to show up in the editor version. This is only a script version, and I have to give a target tile. Okay. Well, this is unnecessary, so let's scrap that to begin with. This doesn't seem like it would be too hard to convert. It does need the board. So we are going to need a couple of different entity IDs. And then it begs the question, does the board have an entity ID? Are we going to be able to track that down? Actually, wait. Isn't the board just a singleton? It is. Okay. So this seems unnecessary. Is anyone actually using this? Ah, some of the push effects and stuff. I see. Some abilities do a move to tile as part of the move as well. Okay. I'm going to refactor this out because I just don't think we need the board. Well, I suppose it can't hurt. It's fine. It's fine. We can just make another version also of the constructor that just does this as well, if needed. I'm just not going to go breaking stuff right now. So if we want to convert this to be a default logic sequence step that has the ability to show up in the reorderable list assets, the scriptable objects basically, I need to grab some logic. So we're going to want to set it up here. We're going to call this move to tile. Oh, interesting. This is under the combat folder. I suppose that makes sense. We need to serialize the fields. So we don't want to serialize these fields. I think instead we want to have entity IDs. Yeah, I guess it's not even copying anything. It's just we're going to need to have an entity ID for the movement. So movement entity ID. And we're going to need to have a... Ooh, we need a destination ability target. Why do we need that? Oh, we don't. Okay, never mind. And then we need the tile entity ID. Oh, that might be trickier. I guess what might be easier is just having a lookup. We use a destination vector here for that. So we'd have a destination vector. And then we want to treat this a little differently depending on if we are a code version or a constructed version. I suppose if mtile equals null, then we want to go find it. And we'll do that by grabbing the board. I guess that's the first check we need to do, actually. This gets a bit muddy. But essentially, if board equals null, we should do board.instance here. And then if tile equals null, actually, why do we even have this target tile? This can just go. And then this also becomes a lot simpler because we can just do, if the tile is equal to null, then we need to do board.instance.get tile. However, let's see, move to. How is this doing it? Find tile function. Tile-based sequence. Ooh. That's fun. Can I do that? Does that make my life a little bit easier? If we come into here and make this a tile-based sequence. This might be overkill. Yeah, this is going to find a lot of tiles. We're not going to be moving to that many. But we could still use it. And just do something like mtile is equal to tiles 0. Not my favorite code. Let's keep moving on. This means that now it would be impossible for tiles to be equal to null unless something has gone fundamentally wrong. And then lastly, we need to check for movement. We need to check if movement equals null. And if it does, we need to find that by entity ID. So we need to do entity manager.instance.get entity by ID, giving it the movement ID. Okay, and that should get the movement set to this dot get component movement. All right. So now we should be able to movement get tiles in range on the board and then have it traverse to a specific tile. Next problem to solve is what are the IDs we need? So if we run the game, we should be able to figure out what tile we're trying to get the goddess to step to and validate that the goddess has actually got an entity ID that we need. Good. Let's see. You are going to need to have an entity on your movement component. Oh no, where do you keep your movement? Oh, it's over here. Does something have a reference to the movement? This does. We can rename this to unit entity ID, so go find the unit. Then we get the unit from that location. And then from there, we can grab the movement object and then get the component from the movement, which is a nightmare. Which is a nightmare. Oh, man. Okay, let's give that a shot, though. And then this will be the ID we need for that. So let's go back in here. Let's add a new combat. Move to tile. Drag that up to here. Let's add a position. Unit ID. We don't want to show any of these other draggable entries, so we should set those all to be hide and inspector, or honestly just make them private. Okay. And then because we added the base type of tiles based sequence, we don't need the destination anymore. All right, and how were we doing the entries for this before? We were doing in here, other examples, we just do it with commas. So I know 11-8 is where the hero is standing, and we want the goddess to move one in front. So let's just start by trying 11-9 and see where that moves the goddess to. We also probably want the sequence to wait, which it looks like it does by default. It is by default a blocking sequence. It's just not reflected in the UI. So we want to add a sequence indent, no custom parameter. So this will just show as blocking. Although, generally one of the nice things about this system is that we have this set up so that we can make something non-blocking if we so choose. And we should do the same thing. Okay, and then that's normally done by giving it a custom parameter, which will be the value inside, which will be m_blocking. Okay, and now we should see a tick box here, and we can decide whether or not the move to tile is blocking or not. Perfect. In theory, it's a bit of a mess, but we should see the goddess move after saying, "I'm sorry." And the interact should come after the move. Hero. Where am I? We don't have time. Ah, that almost worked. Looks like we have an error. Actually, you know what? Sometimes I feel like it's a bit cumbersome to get the console over there. Can I add a console tab? I cannot. There must be a way to do that. Add console. Wait on animation event. I'm sorry, where was that happening? Wait on animation event. Is this getting constructed by another sequence? Yes, if it's a trigger. And it's failing to find the animation on the entity ID. have I not run into this before? When we invoke the animation parameter sequence step, we grab the animation by ID. And then if it's a trigger type, we wait on the animation event sequence step. Is this not the same one we use as part of the ability effect? It most definitely is. So anytime we trigger a trigger animation, we should be having the same problem. But we're only having the issue here. Interesting. And that is filled in correctly, right? This information. These are the same ID, and that's both for the unit, basically. It feels like it's missing this information. Oh. This wait on animation ability effect is more complicated than... Oh no, it is down here. Okay, yeah, it is supposed to be handing off information here. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so yeah, I think this needs to have an entity ID, and this is not a valid constructor. Okay. I'm just surprised we don't run into this exact problem in other spots. Because I would think a lot of things are trigger type. So it's a little odd to me that normal combat doesn't hit the same chunk of code and cause the exact same crash. For our purposes, it should mostly be safe to do this. I'm going to make sure that fixes it, and then I'd like to actually test and see what's happening in combat, because this implies that something broken is happening in combat, or at least something I wouldn't expect. And I'd like to figure out what. Still broken. Still in the same spot. Okay. At that point, we're going to debug. Maybe? Unity is not giving back control. Stop. Try again when Unity is not running. Come on. At this point, it's upset about one of the breakpoints would be my guess, so I'm going to just delete them all. That tends to fix whatever this problem is. Nope. Okay. We will stop that. And then stop Unity again. Then reattach it again. Okay. Now we'll try hitting play. That looks better. New. Okay, in here we're hitting a breakpoint somehow. What step are we currently on? Step 6. Oh, the beam of light. Okay, sure. Okay, so we're getting here. The entity ID is unset. How did we get here? Like, what? Somehow we are calling wait, and it has nothing set up correctly. It must be this. I'm going to try putting a breakpoint here to at least see if that's the call that we're hitting, because maybe it's somewhere else. Okay, that's the beam of light, which we know is fine. Here we're passing in this information. Okay, event name is being set. Do we set entity ID? Now we're doing that. Okay, that is set correctly. And then sequence builder is going to yield on this step. But the entity ID is not set. That's super sketchy. So it's fine here. We add the sequence step at this level. It should have that entity ID set to something valid. But by the time we get in there, it's broken. All right, one more time. Let's gonna go step by step a little slower. Unless something's setting the entity ID after we send it in to nothing, that doesn't really make a ton of sense either. Okay, we're good here. We know this one works fine. Skip through this. Skip through this. And then here, walk forward. Entity ID is set to a correct value. We come into here. Entity ID is set to entity ID. Fantastic. We can see here that value is still correct. We can look inside of this thing and look at the actual sequence, look at its steps. We should have added a new one right after parameter. No? Wait, what? I'm sorry, sequence steps is a list of 6 sequence steps? Most of which are empty. This one's set correctly. That one's set correctly. That one's set correctly. And that one's set correctly. But the first 2 aren't? What? Is this a loop? Okay. This animation parameter sequence step is itself a sequence. Okay? When it is called, it has a add call. If we find all add calls, that's going to look pretty messy because there's a lot of spots where we add to the list of sequence steps. But inside of this specific version of a sequence step, we should only see this thing one time. And then we are invoking the sequence builder. I think we're doing this incorrectly. Let's take a look at other sequence steps that use sequence as their parent. I'm sorry, this is the only one? No, I must have it still set on... Let's do entire solution. I had it set for current document only. Okay, advance. I know this one works really well. So this takes a sequence builder. It calls clear at the start. I don't think I saw that here. Yeah, when we invoke this thing, we need to clear it just in case, I guess. I'm not sure why it would be existing multiple times, but alright. That's fine. Don't really need to dig into how all that works. I know it works 99% of the time. I just missed a step. I clearly wrote this years ago, and I wrote it with purpose. I'm just not sure why it would need to have that list exist, like, ever, multiple times. Like, I would assume each time we run this, we get a different step, because we're renewing new versions of these things, but I guess there must be some form in which we repurpose. So we need to make sure to clear. Yeah, and now that works fine. All right. Fair enough. Still don't fully understand why I wasn't seeing any of these bugs in combat. Yeah, so none of the UI is showing for combat, but combat still works. Perfect. Okay. So then, what else do we want to do? So do we want to have maybe the goddess move back? Also, I guess this is now that value. We guessed that one correctly, which is pretty cool. So we'll have the goddess move to this tile. We'll leave that be blocking. Actually, you know what? We don't have to. We could probably let that play and let the dialogue continue. Then we could do a animation, wait on animation event. Here, this gets a little tricky. No, because if we move it here and you wait for the character to finish animating before you hit A, then this won't trigger. Yeah, so we can't set this up the way I want. Not without a more specific, like, targeted wait on this exact animation. Probably should just make this blocking for now. Makes life easy. Because the thing I want to do is after the goddess moves back, we're going to need to change facing, which I'm pretty sure we have a sequence step for, but maybe it's not set up to be visible. It's probably called something like set unit direction. Yes. Oh, which is set up as one that we should be able to use here. So combat set unit direction. Perfect. So going to have the goddess face south after finishing moving back to position. See how that looks. That, I think, is looking pretty good. Okay, we're coming up on time. We're about 15 minutes until I was going to end the stream. I think... Does it make sense to end early? Because I think this is about what we want. There's still a fair amount of, like, other things on the UI that we need to tutorialize. But the system's in place. Yeah, the next question is more around, like, similar type cutscenes need to be set up in here. So I think when you first load into this room for the very first time, we need to have a small cutscene where hero, like, speaks aloud and, like, questions the clock, and then maybe mentions their stats, and then we slide in the stat information. That could be interesting. And then we walk forward. Time ticks down. We'll need to show this UI at some point as well. Okay. Yeah, next steps from here is really just setting up more of these cutscenes. So, like, let's take a quick look at how we do that, and maybe we'll set up one for Forest 1 real quick. But otherwise, I think we're in a good spot for continuing with tutorialization. Let's look here at Goddess Realm. So when we spawn here, what triggers the cutscene? Oh, you know what? I think this is still hard-coded. Cutscene manager. Yeah, addressable boot intro. So we check to see whether or not the boot intro flag has been hit and whether or not we're in the Goddess Realm scene. Yeah, and we trigger this on scene load. I might want to change the way I'm doing that. Originally, I was thinking I wanted to have these happen, like we loop through every scene, like we have a design data for, like, if we're in this scene and this flag is not set, then play this cutscene. You know what, I think I still want this system, but I think there's also an adjacent system that would be helpful, which is when we spawn in on a specific tile, we also play a cutscene, and we kind of do that with the spawn here. So when we land on this tile, we try and play Goddess Boot Intro Enter Scene. Oh, it's probably the tile underscore at the front. Yeah. So we play this ability, and this ability is the one that, like, does, like, the lightning crash and, like, causes the whole scene to load in. And that happens every time, so this is like a spawn effect. But the cutscene itself only happens based off a flag. I'm just wondering if it would make more sense to just be a part of this here as another like ability that can happen on this tile. Can we have multiple ability addressable IDs set up? What happens there? So the tile data gets added to this on enter ability addressable ID. So when you enter on this tile, it will try and play this ability. And that gets used to put all of that inside of the data. And then inside the tile, we instantiate a bunch of these. And on ability load, we add all the on enter ability. And then when we step onto a tile, because that's where this happens, right? Is, yeah, when we set content, we try and then set we try and get the unit, basically. And then we queue up all of those abilities one after another in order that they would appear in that list. So we could have another ability that just triggers the cutscene. So we can have an intro cutscene one, and then we can have another ability on here that's just like, you know, tile underscore boot cutscene. And then on the ability itself, we'd need to have some sort of like flag gating to be like, hey, this ability is only valid if this flag is true. Which would be part of this can target system. So it would be like, as part of targeting to see whether or not we can execute this ability, we'd need a targeting component that's based off of whether or not a certain flag is true. It's a little muddier than just using the cutscene manager and having data for it. But the thing about the reason I say they're adjacent systems is that the cutscene system is really good for any time we want to load into a scene and play a cutscene immediately. But if I wanted to have a cutscene play when you walk onto a specific tile, so that hero can be like, oh, weird, I think there's something here and maybe I should look around more, as like an indication to search that area, it would make more sense if that was just like on a specific tile. And realistically, I'd want that to also only be based off of if you have certain flags, because I wouldn't want you to step on that tile every single time and have Hero have that conversation. Okay. Okay, so I do want both of those systems. I don't think I want to modify this one right this second, though. I think for the purposes of the tutorial, I think just having it just work off of the base system is fine for now. I can worry about adding the step on a tile, have a cutscene play later. These probably need better names as well. So this will be like Forest 001 clock tutorial. And this would be for that scene. Which would be this name. And then we'd want a addressable ID for that. So again, this should be all in a data-driven spreadsheet somewhere, but we can just do this for now. And this becomes Forest 001 underscore clock tutorial, I think. I guess that's what the Goddess Realm part of the name is. So I guess this becomes Forest 001 slash clock tutorial. It's probably a better fitting name. Then we let's just do this. Copy this. Name this Forest 001. What is this one right now? Ah, this is a complete cutscene. I'm going to create a new folder. And this will be a complete. And this maybe needs to be called tutorial. And then we make another folder under this one, which is Forest 001. Add these here. And then we call this clock tutorial. And this is clock tutorial dialog. This becomes let's do it here. This becomes hero. Where am I again? Let's see. Let's remove this one. I don't know what the dialogue is here, but it's essentially hero being like, I'm in a forest now? Let's turn off the sound effects for now. Small, small, small for the dialogue size. And then each of these will close self, I think, as they get played. Because essentially it's only hero speaking, so there's not like a order to this. It's just going to be open, close, open, close, open, close. I guess actually we can do stay open. I think that'll work the way I hope. And then for this, I think we can do top center alignment for all of these. Will make more sense. Okay. And then if we go back over here, instead of this dialogue, we get this one. We probably don't need most of this information at this point. I think I want to just do player status tutorial. I want to see if that feels okay. I might animate these later, but for now, let's delete this, delete this. Advanced dialogue. Deleting a ton of this stuff. We'll need to set whatever the flag I just created to false. Or completed. And then we're not transitioning here. Okay, I don't think we need any of this. Delete this one. Actually, I think I do want another dialogue here. We can do dialogue 2 and dialogue 2, and then we can delete some of these extras. That's even cleaner. Okay, and then I just want another piece of dialogue here. We're gonna do... Is this a... Oh, actually, there's already too many. If I drag this up here, can I see better? No, why is this, like, keeping it a bit small? If I add another one... Yeah, it's getting... like gated to be only a certain size. Not sure why that's happening. If we maximize this, does it still keep it only 3 sized? Yeah, I'm not sure why that scroll bar is locked that way. Is it because I have it up on this monitor over here too? If we add like hierarchy over here. No, still keeping it locked to only showing 3 at a time. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, so I'm in a forest now. What's this thing she gave me? This is my stats written on here. Real rough, but just trying to get the kind of sense of what we're doing here. I want to do another pass on the kind of verbiage, but that should be okay. And if we go back to the inspector and then look at... That all looks okay. Cool. So I think the only other thing we're missing is we need to set up that new flag that we made. So in the JSON data, we're going to hard code this for now, and I'll do it after we end the stream. I'll set it up correctly. But we're going to grab the boot intro as an example. Nope, can't do it that way. Okay, I'll do it properly. We will do... Let's see here. What did we name it? The flag shall be called Force 001. Clock tutorial, it will be a set flag. We will download that as a TSV. We will replace the existing one. We will then do a parse of the flags to turn into JSON files. Okay, I think if we start at boot, it might kick off that second cutscene we just created. I feel like I'm forgetting a few steps. Did we... Actually, we didn't set the addressable here, is problem number one. What did we say this needed to be? This. Perfect. Okay, now it should work. Trixie with the hydrate. Appreciate it. Okay, click past this part. Where am I? This is feeling good. Perfect. And then ideally, those should be setting to false, or again, complete. They should no longer be active. So if we come back in here, we shouldn't get that cutscene again. And if we go back into the world and start at forest checkpoint 1, we're not getting that cutscene again either. Okay. And now we have the clock and the HP showing up as stats. Now we just need to teach abilities, and we need to teach the progress of a roam area. We need to take another look at combat at some point too. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to try and get done today. That was the title of the video, Tutorialized UI. So I'm just trying to get the UI set up so that it can be tutorialized. And although we did not get it all done here in this stream, I think we're in a pretty good state for the systems to be it's all data entry now at this point. It's a lot of setting up more of these dialogues, setting up more of these cutscene moments, and then maybe a little bit more feature work with getting it so some of them can play at certain points when we step on certain tiles, or even checking at the end of the turn to see if oh, you're almost out of time on the clock, and have heroes say oh, I'm running out of time. I wonder what's going to happen. Like little things like that I think would help. Perfect. All right. Progress. Continuous. Where are we at? So we got in the adding the slime enemy. We fixed the HP crash thing, kind of. I still want to architect it differently. UI hiding during tutorial. We've got the hiding part, and we're still working through the revealing, but I think most of it's there. The ideas, at least. Next week, so tomorrow, we're going to be streaming at 11 a.m. We started last week with the play the build, make notes, create work items schedule week 1. I think we should be in a good spot that we shouldn't need to do a whole build play. Well, you know what? Actually, we should. We should still do that, but we should do it a lot quicker. We shouldn't need to spend an entire stream on these things. It was partly because we were starting up for the first time in a couple of weeks, but I think we should be able to allocate maybe 30 minutes or something just to playing the build, making some more notes, and then I think I'm not really sure what we want to do next. Let's bring these forward to week 2. We're still working through the tutorial. We've got hero talking. That's good, but there's a lot more work to be done there. Ordering of abilities and designing skill trees and building out the rest of the maps. I think we're getting to the point where it's going to be a lot of data inputting. We're going to have to just create a lot of stuff here soon, and we're not going to have a lot more stuff to like feature build. There's some stretch goals like the event system, which we haven't really talked about much. And I think probably the other big thing is going to be like an AI pass. So like trying to create more different enemies. And like, I think I'd like the enemies to move multiple times. Right now they're only moving 1 square at a time. And balancing that is going to be a bit of a fun journey as well. So I think there's a fair amount of AI work. And then I think it's a lot of just data entry for the most part. But we're getting real close to having like a full experience that like you can work your way through these enemies, fight them, end up dying now and the game isn't going to crash, gain some experience, put some points into your skills, level up your character a bit, feel like it's getting easier, and then move towards the next statue. Right now we've got these goddess statues really close together, but I think it's going to start feeling really good when there's a lot of these rooms to work through with a fair amount of enemies, and just being able to like slowly get better and better and quicker to be able to reach the next checkpoint. Okay, yeah, no, that's the breakdown. So we'll be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. I think it'll probably be similar to today. I don't know what the features we'll work on are. I think some of it will be a little bit dictated by how the playing the game and making notes goes. But we'll do the same thing where we'll go for 2 hours tomorrow from 11 to 1 PST, and then again 2 to 4, again ending around this time tomorrow. For now, this will be Tolhi signing out.